The 6th-ranked Miami Hurricanes are heading to Louisville to face the Cardinals and get revenge for last year's loss. Rudy, how do the Canes remain unbeaten this week?
I mean, they're the better team. So really, it's just a matter of taking advantage of the bye week as best as they could by getting healthy. I think a lot of those issues on defense are just not having everybody together. I mean, look, this roster hasn't been 100% healthy since week 1 against UF, and really the first defensive series of week 1 against UF with Ruben Bain going down
Very true.
right then and there. So that should look good for Miami. They have everybody coming back healthy, both offensively and defensively. So I mean, just doing that, executing your game plan, and knowing what Louisville's tendencies are, Miami should be just fine.
Yeah, I think for me, it's we need to limit the explosive plays. Miami has allowed 7 plays of 50 or more yards, which I think ranks in the upper hundreds, which is
Not
wild,
good.
not good.
No.
Another aspect you mentioned it and touched upon it is how healthy are we? I'm not just talking about like Jalen Rivers returning, but I'm talking about like how ready are we? How ready are these guys to go? Because we're getting late into the season. We're in the 3rd week of October. A lot of teams, including ours, are probably beat up. But what is the extent of those injuries? Is it something that's going to be lingering for the rest of the season? Is it just simple bumps and bruises that we can kind of get over in that bye week? It's going to be a really interesting thing to see. I think how the defense responds is another key to victory, another key to the game. It's like the defense will be competing with a weakened O line. University of Louisville's missing their left tackle, who's out with a knee injury. So it'll be interesting to see those ends matching up against a backup left tackle, and to see if the chemistry on that line continues to either go down or if they can kind of get into a stride and rhythm. I also want to see how Miami's offense comes out. The number one offense in the country. Is it fast and furious, or are we kind of stutter stepping because it's been a bye week? What do you think? How do you think Cam Ward and the offense are going to come out?
Let's quote this song because we haven't been able to do it for like 20 something years, but don't try to front see. Number one offense in the
It's in the
country. We
country.
can finally say it for real for a
Ah,
long time.
Baldwin
But
boys.
yeah, what do they do? I mean, look, the good thing about this offense, especially against Louisville, is in their losses. Let's look at it this way. Louisville has shot themselves in the foot in all of their losses, and even in that close victory against UVA, they also,
Yeah,
did the Cavaliers a lot of favors. But what I found interesting about that game was Louisville struggled against two different styles of offense. Against Notre Dame, that's a big physical team. Miami
it's
can
true.
run that style of football. They've done it effectively against Cal before the defense kind of let them down and had to throw from behind. And if they want to go up tempo and throw all over the place like SMU does, Miami's capable of doing that as well. So as long as this is really a game of complementary football, if the defense can really shut down Louisville early, this is Miami's to run away with. But if there are continued struggles on the defensive side of the ball, this is where things start getting a little hectic for Miami. Either Cam Ward is going to take what the defense gives him, like he did the first couple games of the year, or is he going to continue to try to force it down the field and not go to his checkdowns when he has them?
Yeah, I was doing a little research for this game, and Miami is 1-3 in Louisville since 2006, which is a little bit of a worry. Miami hasn't played a ranked team all season and may not probably play one. But this Louisville team is probably the closest thing, maybe a Syracuse, to a ranked team that they're going to get. So it'll be really interesting to see how Miami plays. I think Tyler Shough is probably the best quarterback we've played so far. I mean, Drones was good too, but and he was more of like I think a maverick in terms of a quarterback. But yeah, we'll
Yeah,
see what happens. I think Louisville really needs to limit its self-inflicted plays, like whether it's turnovers or penalties. I think that's really what kind of kept them out of the game in Notre Dame, and I think it's what cost them the loss and the near loss to Virginia last week. Just sloppy play, undisciplined play. And I think Miami also needs to watch out for this freshman running back. Louisville recently, upgraded freshman running back Isaac Brown to their starter. He's averaging 8.6 yards and has a long of 77-yard run, which is very similar to that Florida run we had. So I think that's going to be an interesting matchup to see because we've been burned by some running backs over this year. So
yeah, he's a local kid too. He's from
yeah.
Homestead High School, so they know him pretty well here. They also
Oh
have
yeah.
Don
Don
Chaney Jr.,
Chaney. Yep.
who's also there. Look, this is a lot of the bye week couldn't come at a better time
I
because some
agree.
of the running plays you'll probably see Louisville try to do. Yeah, they ran the ball between the tackles pretty well against UVA at times, but I couldn't imagine them trying to run a lot of the same stuff that Miami has struggled with over the years or over this season so far in terms of going sideline to sideline and playing assignment football. So having that extra week to deal with it, to get healthy, you don't need to run that at play speed to understand whose assignment is what. And with everybody, back, that communication looked really good those first couple of weeks.
It
I would
did.
hope that it comes back again.
Yeah, that's my hope. You and I both know Mario Cristobal's 0-2 coming out of the bye week, so I'm hoping that he can turn this around. I think this team is different. I think it's a different caliber of player. I think another silver lining to keep an eye on, which is something that I haven't really heard a lot of people talk about, maybe one or two, but Louisville's only 58% in the red zone, which ranks 89th in the country. But here's the
Yep.
really important stat about that: they're 50% success in the red zone when it's power four teams. So like eliminate the cupcake teams. They're only, it's a coin toss once in the red zone. Whereas Miami, like we were talking about in the midseason report, they're hovering almost near 90%. Basically you get Miami in that 20-yard line, we're automatic. So anything else we're missing out for this game?
I mean, I just like the way that Miami's defense actually lines up against Louisville's offense. Because if you look outside of what we'll see running wise, Miami's really been their Achilles heel so far has been that secondary and the passing defense.
Yep.
And if you look at Louisville has to throw themselves out of situations sometimes. Like even in their wins, they've come back from trailing where they're just throwing straight verts. And you watch some of these,
Yeah.
their receivers had the advantage against those teams, but with Miami's pass rush, it shouldn't have that much time to throw the ball downfield like they were in previous games this season. Where Miami gets bit is when they run
Yeah.
quick plays where it's quickly like it's out of the quarterback's hands within a second. It's some short little route that's just not being covered properly. So I like the way that matches up. And hey, we can say whatever we want, but when Saturday at noon, we'll figure it out from there.
Yeah, and who do you have? And do you think you don't have to give me an exact score, but what are we talking about? Are we covering the spread, two scores, one score, field goal? What are you thinking?
I mean, the spread's what, like 4.5 or something like
Yeah, I
that.
think they actually upped it. I just checked ESPN. It's 5 now.
The one thing that I've learned is not being a betting man. If you
Yeah.
see a team that has like they're favored by 3 or something, they basically look at it as a push. Like if they favor
Right.
the home team by 3, it means that you're usually good for about 3 points at home in terms of your differential. So if they have the
Yeah.
away team up 4 plus now, I think people are starting to realize this Miami team can move the ball. And look, it's one thing to make mistakes, it's another thing to just not be able to line up. And as much as Louisville's made some mistakes in their losses this year, they just don't match up well with Miami. I think in terms of how they've, looked against other opponents, the strength of Louisville's defense is that defensive line. They haven't
Yeah.
really
Yeah,
produced
I'm
as
I'm
well this
actually
year as
very
they had.
worried. They have quite a few sacks.
Quite a few,
S
but like their sack leader, who was the ACC sack leader a year ago, only has like 2 this year. So in terms of like
Right.
that piece, Miami's been very good in pass protection, with the exception of Cal bringing the house
Right.
when they had the chance. So if Louisville runs that same thing, I don't think they have the ability to really hang with Miami's receivers. So I
Yeah.
feel good on that. And I hope I don't get burned for saying
Well, I'm with you. You know what? So we can go down together. I think
that.
Miami's got this. I think we're covering the spread. I did say the other week 2 touchdowns. I'm going to be humble. I'm going to say by at least 1 touchdown this week. We'll have this. So we'll remain undefeated, 7-0, and the country can continue to hate us. But this,
I love it.
yeah, and,
Please
and you
keep
know
hating.
another thing we were actually talking about this, which I think is a kind of another thing to keep an eye on too, is the two programs have kind of been running a parallel kind of trajectory where preseason they were favorites. I think Louisville was number 3 or 4 to win the ACC, and so you're seeing them not play to their potential, but you're seeing one team in Miami continue to escape with victories, but you're seeing a Louisville team kind of going down. They, like I said, they pulled the victory out of Charlottesville, but I think that was a kind of a cupcake team. I don't think Virginia was as good as their record says they were, and so they were kind of lucky to escape with that. So it'll be interesting to see if Louisville can bounce back and Miami will eventually catch that loss that they've been avoiding, or whether Miami will continue to make those changes and move forward, and Louisville will continue to take that downward spiral.
Yep.